It's all fun and games until Adrien Brody shows up in dreadlocks and a tank top and riffs in Patois. Live from New York, these are the worst SNL hosts ever. Say what you want about Chevy Chase, and there's a lot you could say, but he pretty much invented Weekend Update, which should count for something, right?
Good evening. I'm God, and here's the news.
Chase left during the second season, and when he returned in season 3 to host, some of his former castmates weren't too happy to see him again. As the story goes, John Belushi had been griping about Chase to Bill Murray, who got a little riled up and nearly came to blows with Chase seconds before he was supposed to start his monologue. Years later, Murray described the supposed brawl to Empire, saying, "It was really a Hollywood fight. A don't touch my face kind of thing, because we all felt mad he had left us, and somehow I was the anointed avenging angel who had to speak for everyone. But Chevy and I are friends now. It's all fine." Of course, that wasn't the last time Chase hosted SNL. His last time was in 1997, when he slapped Sherry O'Terry on the back of the head. After years of causing behind-the-scenes trouble doing more stuff than we have time to talk about, that was apparently the final straw. In 2005, The Simple Life was peaking in popularity, and SNL predictably tapped Paris Hilton to host an episode. General consensus? Not hot.
I'm fashion fever Barbie.
Rolling Stone called her one of the all-time worst hosts, and nobody could find a reason to disagree. In 2006, Tina Fey went on Howard Stern On Demand and shared her blunt assessment of Hilton, saying, "She's a piece of she's so dumb, and she's so proud of how dumb she is." Fey said that Hilton wouldn't even come out of her dressing room if she didn't like a sketch idea. She did propose a few of her own, but, well, they weren't funny. Fey said she would make fun of all the girls she hates. She said, "I want to play Jessica Simpson because I hate her. You should write a sketch about Jessica Simpson. She's so fat." Another sore point with the cast was that Hilton clearly didn't care one bit about them. It was so obvious that Seth Meyers, who was a cast member then, started a little wager.
She hadn't asked any of us a personal question, and this one said, the first person she asks a personal question, I'll give $100.
Yeah.
Didn't ask one person.
Needless to say, Live from New York never happened via Paris again. Oh baby. Justin Bieber hosted Saturday Night Live in February 2013, and apparently everyone wanted to say never. Never again. That comes straight from the source. Cast members Bill Hader and Jay Pharoah were on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen when a caller asked them to identify the worst behaved host. There was no hesitation.
I mean, we both know, dog.
Yeah, it was Bieber.
Right.
Yeah, Bieber was Bieber was,
yes.
Yeah.
According to Hader, Bieber didn't seem to be in the best headspace when he hosted. He added, "Maybe he's in a better place, but back then, he was in it was rough."
Check your email, Hillary Clinton.
He didn't give out any specific details, but it's possible that Bieber had his own case of Bieber fever, if you know what we mean. Talking to Howard Stern, Hader complained that Bieber had brought his entire entourage to the studio, like 20 people, all crowding the stage and making it hard for the cast to work. And that was day one. Whatever happened for the rest of rehearsals, it was enough to turn Hader into a hater. It was the patois heard round the world. Adrien Brody was hot off winning his first Oscar for The Pianist when he hosted Saturday Night Live in 2003. How do you follow up receiving the highest honor in acting? Yeah, yikes. The story of how this absolute cringe made it on air is as murky as Brody's accent. The long-standing excuse is that Brody went completely off script and surprised everyone. However, there's another rumor that Brody had whipped out that dreadlock disaster at the dress rehearsal. And, well, nobody saw a problem with it. The That Week in SNL podcast posted on X about what had allegedly gone down, writing, "I'm fairly sure it was Tina Fey that said Brody came in with a bunch of awful sketch ideas and this was the only thing they allowed him to do. We really want to know what the other ideas were, if this was the one deemed good enough to air.
Man, Jamaica, man, you know, Rastafari, you know.
If you don't know the name Milton Berle, let's just say he pretty much invented television comedy in the 1950s. He had an over-the-top, vaudeville-inspired gimmick, and executive producer Lorne Michaels immediately realized it was a mistake to have him host Saturday Night Live. Berle essentially took over the show, ignoring direction and hamming it up. Writer Rosie Schuster kept telling him to tone down his performance so it wasn't so broad or upstaging his fellow actors. She said in the book, Live from New York, of course he went even broader, if that was possible. It was sort of like watching a comedy train accident in slow motion on a loop. The coup de grace was Berle's insistence on ending the show with a musical rendition of September Song, for which he was greeted with a standing ovation from the 10 people he'd invited to the show on orders to give him a standing ovation. This episode has never been rerun or rebroadcast by the edict of Michaels, who was furious that Berle had hijacked his show. Donald Trump has hosted Saturday Night Live twice. His first time in 2004 was when The Apprentice was blowing up TV and NBC wanted to milk some of that corporate synergy, for better or worse.
He was everything you would think. He didn't have any sense of humor.
Right.
But if things worked, he liked them.
And by work, did you have to explain to him why they worked?
Yeah.
Trump's second hosting stint in 2015 came in the midst of his presidential run, with all the controversies you'd expect. For starters, someone organized a protest outside the SNL offices at 30 Rock. Then cast member Taran Killam told NPR, "We could hear the protests during our table read. As we're reading 40 mediocre sketches, we just hear, no Trump." Colin Jost told MSNBC, "It was a weird week for everyone, and he can't help but cringe looking back at the episode. In his words, it was a real Confederate statue of entertainment." It's true. Trump's sketches had the texture of a milky bath of narcissism, where all the punchlines were based on Donald Trump being Donald Trump. But honestly, did anyone expect anything different?
I said to the writers of this sketch, keep it modest, okay.
Frank Zappa should have been a perfect fit for Saturday Night Live, since they both had a habit of skewering corporate media with satire. But apparently, he was way too bossy. In their 2014 book, Saturday Night, A Backstage History of Saturday Night Live, Doug Hill and Jeff Weingrad wrote, "When he arrived, he immediately started giving orders. Al Franken remembers Zappa saying things like, 'Here's some ideas. I want to have pumpkins hanging on a Christmas tree. Pumpkins that eat people's faces. Pull that together by Saturday.'"
I don't do drugs.
You don't do drugs?
Cast member Don Novello, aka Father Guido Sarducci, said bluntly, "The Frank Zappa show was like one of the worst ever." He recalled that the dress rehearsal had been a disaster, so Zappa decided to just up and break the fourth wall.
Thank you. And remember, I'm reading this off these cards underneath this camera here.
Novello said, "The approach he took was, he read the cards like he was reading the cards. He made a point of it. Lorne was really upset. Guess nobody expected him to be so frank." Andrew Dice Clay was one of the world's hottest comedians in 1990, which says a lot about where we were culturally in 1990. The year before, MTV gave him a lifetime ban after just 3 minutes of his stand-up act. 3 minutes. And NBC wanted the guy, known for unairable jokes, to host an hour-long show?
How are ya? That's about all I could say tonight, you know what I'm saying?
When he hosted, cast member Nora Dunn made a public declaration that she was refusing to appear on the show that week, while musical guest Sinead O'Connor also backed out. Dunn explained her decision to Salon in 2015, saying, "Lorne said Andrew Dice Clay was a phenomenon worth examining. Yeah, he was a phenomenon, but if you're going to examine him, he shouldn't be the host. You should write an article." Elon Musk hosted SNL in May 2021, And let's just say, opinions were divided. On one hand, an awkward multi-billionaire awkwardly joking about how great he is isn't exactly a recipe for great comedy.
To anyone I've offended, I just want to say I reinvented electric cars and I'm sending people to Mars in a rocket ship.
On the other hand, Musk had been drumming up a lot of controversy that year for his comments about COVID-19, among other things. So there was a little more than rich dude hate going on. While a lot of viewers weren't happy about Musk hosting, that also extended to some of the show's cast. Prior to appearing, the SpaceX founder tweeted alongside a devil emoji, "Let's find out just how live Saturday Night Live really is." Cast member Bowen Yang responded in an Instagram story with an emoji of a frowning face and the text, "What the f does this even mean?" Meanwhile, Andrew Dismukes posted an Instagram story of SNL alum Sherry O'Terry along with the caption, "Only CEO I want to do a sketch with is Sherry O'Terry." Afterwards, headlines called Musk the worst host of all time, which, to be fair, seems like a title they're just giving away at this point.
People are so mean online.
According to Rolling Stone, Steven Seagal is the #1 worst host in Saturday Night Live history. And there may be some truth to this one. According to Tim Meadows, Seagal's utter lack of a sense of humor led to most of the jokes going over his head, and he would then complain that he didn't get them. Meadows said he just wasn't funny, and he was very critical of the cast and the writing staff.
Man, your daughter sure does take her time. What?
Cast member Julia Sweeney recalled Seagal pitching his own ideas for sketches, which were decidedly not good, saying some of his sketch ideas were so heinous, but so hilariously awful. It was like we were on candid camera. The episode was so bad that if you watch it on Peacock right now, it's cut down from the original hour to 37 minutes. The cold open, Seagal's monologue, and multiple sketches have just disappeared. Although, honestly, we're not sure who will miss them.
This is what happens when you pollute the planet.
Seagal's SNL reputation was sealed in a subsequent episode hosted by Nicolas Cage, when Lorne Michaels threw in a dig at Seagal.
Well, they probably think I'm the biggest jerk who's ever been on the show.
No, that would be Steven Seagal.